Yo, what's up? Lately I was thinking of that old Wild Wild West movie with that dope spider mech that the antagonist of the movie mobs around in. And that inspired me to turn this Black Hawk helicopter I had collecting dust into just that. I'm Imagine Create Destroy, and let's get started. While I build this model kit, I want to go over the backstory for this mech. This build is part of my post-apocalyptic desert wasteland series, and is the craftsmanship of the people of Kilmore. If you're not familiar with the city, check out the link to the video on the screen now, or the link in the description. While the captain of the boat mech, named the Havoc, was on a supply run, the crew came across this downed Black Hawk, or you could say Black Hawk down. The helicopter was in relatively good shape, fully stocked with missiles, and still had 2 machine guns inside. And had ample seating for 16, making it perfect for hauling people to attack raiders. After hauling it back to town, they worked on it for about a year, transforming it to a mech capable of wandering the wasteland. Now this thing has been in a significant amount of battles protecting the city of Kilmore, so we're going to weather it pretty heavy with some rust and some chipping effects, but we'll go ahead and get to that later when we actually do the painting for this bad boy. Alright, now this thing looks pretty sweet, but also way too perfect for a crashed helicopter, so let's start modifying. I'll start by chopping off the tail, which I like to think broke off in the crash. Then I'll chop up the propellers to use as protective armor plating on this back compartment. Then I'll mount these 2 machine guns that the crew found in the helicopter, just to add some protective measures to any rear flanks. Before I added the machine guns, I trimmed off the excess from the propellers here to give a nice flush fit to the back of the helicopter. I added back on the piece of landing gear from the tail of the helicopter, so when they're unloading and loading, this thing can squat all the way down to the ground and make it a little easier for them. I also glued on the propeller to the underside, and I'm going to use that as the mounting point for these legs here. Now for the little spidey legs, I'll start with some de-popsicled popsicle sticks, and we'll cut them down to about 1.5 inches. Then repeat that process 15 times. After, I use my pin vise to drill holes in both sides. We'll set those to the side and we'll start on the midsection for the legs. I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm only going to drill a hole on one side. We'll do that 8 times, and then we can move on to the next step. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and take this polystyrene tube. We're going to shove it into one of the sticks with 2 holes. Then we'll take one of the sticks with 1 hole, shove it in that hole. Then we'll take another stick with 2 holes and shove it through the other hole. Then that gives you these articulating legs. These will be perfect for posing later on. Now it is a spider mech, so we're going to glue 4 legs to each side, and then we can move on to the next step. Lastly, for the legs, I'm going to take these bamboo skewers, and we'll attach them to the ends of each one of the legs. I'll set the model to the side, and now we can get started on the base. Started by making the support pillars for the overpass. I cut one side out, and to make sure both sides are the same, I laid it on a second piece, then flipped it, tracing out the outline. Then I used the second piece to trim the first piece. I don't know if that makes sense, but if not, I guess you could just go back and watch the video. Next we can strap on, hey yo, chill. Next we can slap on some strips of foam board that I cut out. And this is going to act as the concrete barrier on the sides. I based all the pieces black, then mix up some plaster to make the asphalt. I'll give it a little tap on the tabletop here, just to level it out a bit, and we'll go ahead and let that set. Once it's fully set, I'm going to bend it a bit just to add some cracks. I'll be honest, I accidentally broke off a whole piece of the road, but that's okay. I have some plans to make that look intentional. But first, I'll use my hobby knife to make the cracks a little bit more defined. I also ripped away some pieces of the road just so it looks like chunks are missing. Lastly, for the weathering of the road, I'm just going to rip off some chunks of that concrete barrier, add that nice post-apocalyptic vibe. I'm going to use some metal wire to act as rebar. I'm going to shove it into both sides, and now it looks like the road's hanging on by a thread, just like my life. Now we can just glue those supports to the bridge. I'm going to go ahead and rip a couple chunks off of the side that the road is hanging off on, and then we'll just glue those chunks to the base, kind of like they just fell off. There is a lot of exposed foam. I don't want to ruin my hard work by melting it with spray paint, but go ahead and hand base the model before I move on to painting. I know the camera's not focused, but I'll fix that in a second, don't worry. I started with a light gray craft paint, then hit it with a thick coat of black wash and splotched on some brown wash. To weather the road, I did a very heavy dry brushing of light gray and a not so heavy dry brushing of off-white. The off-white is just to highlight the raised edges and the cracks of the road. And the last bit of dry brushing will be to the rebar. I'm just going to dry brush that with a metallic silver paint. Next we compose the mech. I just adjusted the legs to where I wanted on the base, then used some super glue and accelerator to speed up the process. Now that I'm done there, I prime the model black, set it to the side to dry, and then we can move on to the painting. And actually, before we start painting, I did trim off this little bit of excess material, which now looking back to the video, I actually like the way that looks. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I really like the black, so I'm just going to weather it up a little bit. I did that by dry brushing on this metallic silver, and then I got a little bit heavier on the dry brush to add kind of like a chipped effect. Then I use a bright red paint to paint the tips of all the rockets, as well as the bigger rockets here. Lastly, I used the rust effect by AK Interactive just to rust it up a little bit. I don't know if rust really happens in the desert, but it looks pretty cool. Then we can just go ahead and super glue the model to the base and move on to the ground. I started with the layer of Desert Sands by AK Interactive over the entire base, and I used this paintbrush just to give it a more realistic texture. After I use the desert soil over the terrain paste. This will help it stick to the paste, and it gives it really nice depth. While that dries, we can move back up to the road. I'm going to add some grass tufts here to add to that post-apocalyptic road look. Then we can move back down to the ground, and I just added grass tufts until it felt right. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And lastly, we can paint the sides with the black 4.0. That's another diorama down. Catch you on the next one. Peace.